It's so interesting. Like readers come into the book for the first time, depending on how much exposure they have to kind of like the science projections of what is going to happen to our planet, uh, would see the book as either a total nightmarish dystopia or a hopeful utopia. And I called it, like, in my mind, a best worst case scenario, because like if it doesn't take long to read. All the projections are not great for the planet. A lot of like the warming is baked in. So even if we today hit zero emissions, there's that cook time. Like you cook a potato, it takes a long time to cool down. So there's going to be some really bad things that are going to happen. But there's also, I did a lot of research into the worst case scenarios, which are like complete. It would be hard for our species to live on this planet. And there's all these different online tools where you can kind of adjust emissions and solar generation to see where that temperature curve is going to go. And so I kind of went in the middle of the road, made some estimations based on that, and then built the world from there. So baking in, there's going to be probably a good deal of sea level rise. It's like cities like New York, or New York City, where a lot of the novel is set. It's going to be very, very challenging for the city to remain as it is right now. And then it was really like from there, I don't know, it was so, I feel like working on a big project, like the universe just kind of sends me a little assistance, a little help here and there. And so one of the things, I was like just trying to imagine, yeah, like you're saying, how would this world look? And then I was at my brother's apartment in New York, and he went to school for urban planning. And I was just kind of, I don't know, like mindlessly going through as we were talking, like at his desk, just going through stuff. And I found a newsletter from his urban planning school, and on the back was a review of a book called Dystopia Utopia 2100. And it was the series of like architectural renderings of what cities might look like in 100 years, given different projections. And so this was exactly what I needed. And so I looked at different cities around the planet, like Nuuk, where a lot of the book is set in Greenland. People, not me, but experts have identified it as potentially a site for in the midst of really bad climate catastrophes, a place where could host a mega city, perched above the sea, cooler latitudes. And so the book was that book was really helpful in that sense. Looking at like topography maps of New York City was helpful, so I could see the even the slight elevation changes to be like, okay, well this area is going to be underwater. So if there was kind of a hyperloop transit system, this would make sense for the stops to be here, here, and here will be islands, potentially. And I got really into that research, and I think it kind of like numbed me to what some of the effects that are coming. So again, some people coming to this for the first time are like, "This is horrifying," and I think now, for better or worse, I'm like, I know a little bit of what's in store. This is a story about three sisters, and Ara and Em are identical twins, and Josie is their younger sister by 10 months. So like almost Irish triplets kind of situation, and their mother Bertie. And this family is very much close, but also warring, and a lot of issues of codependency. And it came out of, I think, like almost all families. In the story, Ara and Emma are one-hit wonder rock musicians. So if you were alive in the universe of this book in the early 2000s, you would have heard their hit single "American Mosh," on the radio. It would have been playing everywhere. And what happens is like over the next 15 years, they can't get it a next album. They just can't get it together. And so their younger sister Josie is taking care of them. And Josie, like we all have, I think, somewhat of this element in us or in our families. She loves taking care of her family, but also resents them for needing her, but needs them. And so it creates this codependent, this kind of chaos. And I think the I can get more into the plot elements of it if we
Please.
want to. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
please.
So what happens when the novel starts out? Ara and Emma have scheduled a gig for the first time in years, and it's at a little bar in central Maine. And they, to put in comparison, had been nominated for a Grammy Award and walked the red carpet and ultimately lost to Coldplay, but they were nominated. And this just to show how far they have fallen. And what we learn is that a big part of the reason they haven't been able to continue their success is because Ara, who's the drummer and she writes the lyrics, has developed and struggled with substance abuse for years now. First starting with carpal tunnel from just drumming for decades, but also she's experienced some pretty serious traumas in her life. And this is how she's been coping, first with painkillers and now heroin. Well, after this gig, she ends up in jail, and the sisters have to bail her out as fast as they can. And so their scheme to get her out of there is to finally record the second album that they've been working on all these years. So with Ara in prison, Emma out of prison, they're talking on the phone, going through visits. They're finally trying to record this to try to get her out before it's too late. And while this is going on in the jail, so it's from all of their perspectives. Um, their mother, Birdie, has been absent for most of their lives. She has poured herself into her work as a brilliant lawyer for the most needy, legal rights, prisoner rights, any leftist cause you could imagine. That's where she puts her love into, sometimes to the detriment of missing out on her girls' lives. And so at this moment when they could use a lawyer the most, their mom has just decided that she needs to be on this humanitarian mission to break the Israeli siege of Gaza as part of a fictionalized version of the Freedom Flotilla that's still going on. And I started this book 10 years ago when I first thought about it and started writing the early pages. And just as a side, 10 years ago, the Gaza Strip was still under siege by Israel, and now, like both tragically and incredibly, like it's still the novel is timely in a way that is pretty depressing based on what's going on now. But that's where their mom is headed across the ocean. So we get chapters from Birdie on this ship, Ara in the prison, Emma, who's been separated from her twin sister for the first time, other than rehab, like they've been together their whole lives, and then Josie, who's trying to run around and take care of everybody at the same time. Really fun to think about, like with so many different characters, like how to make the voices distinct. And so Emma, I'll say a lot of the book is in the third person, except for Ara. So in Ara's chapters, she's in jail and she's writing a prison journal. So it's all in first person. So that was fun to be able to switch back and forth. But for a lot of the characters, kind of think about what drives them, and that would then influence how they think about the world and the choices of what they would say, both for interiority, their vocab, but also talking to other people. So for Emma, she's a musician. She loves music. So when she, for instance, is feeling down, she might compare that to like a G minor chord. Or if she's hearing something happy and she's thinking in the major scales. Josie, which I haven't really got into yet, but Josie is she's an evolutionary biologist. She studies ants and insects. Everything she thinks of, the way she thinks of the world, is through genetics and dopamine and serotonin, and so that helped me kind of sharpen her voice in a unique way. And then Ara is what really defines her, even though she's been a successful musician. What has consumed her is her addiction, and that is going to be driving how she thinks about the world. A substance that both gives her relief from like the pain and traumas of life, but also so much shame and pain and regret. And so just that was just a useful thing as a writer, thinking about like how to make these characters sound distinct from one another. all right, let's think about, kind of their driving forces, what's consumed them in life for better or worse. And then that can influence the metaphors, the similes they come up with, the comparisons, what they want to talk about, how they relate to each other. So that was really fun getting into that way. And then also with Birdie, writing a character who is in her 70s, but is consumed in some ways similar to Christina in The Great Transition, with justice and with caring not just for her immediate family, but the greater family of the world. And that push and pull of wanting to be everywhere and save everybody, but the impossibility of being able to go everywhere. And so she's struggling a lot with that. But that helped just sharpen each of the characters for me.